So I want to thank our very, very special guest today. We have with us Alexander Siddig, best known as Dr. Julian Bashir on Deep Space Nine, and more recently, Doran Martell on Game of Thrones. Welcome, Sid. Thank you for coming.
You are very welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you both.
As a big sci-fi geek and a Game of Thrones geek, I can't tell you how psyched I am to have you here today, so thank you.
No, this sounds great. The whole premise of this cast sounds really terrific fun.
Yeah, we like it. We like it.
We have fun. We have fun here. So how has the pandemic impacted your life? Different from normal.
Yeah, hugely. Obviously I'm not going to be working for as long as it lasts, at least as long as we can't get insurance to make a movie or travel anywhere with 200 people. So that seems pretty unlikely unless we make a tiny little movie with 5 people or so. Wearing masks all the time outside is no fun. But I think really more the fact that it's transformed the world around me. And I think I've got either got to adapt or adapt or die. And I think that we've just got to do the right thing. And everybody has their own opinions to what that might be. And you've got to be cool with that too. If you're pro-choice, you're pro-choice. And I'm pro-choice pretty much along the lines of everything. So my wife is impacted a bit harder than I am because I'm a pretty lonely guy anyway. I work around the world. Like last month, I think I was away for last year I was away for 5 months in 8 different countries. And so when I get home, that's, it's my staycation. I'm not leaving the house for nothing. And my wife just wants to party. And so we have to find an even balance. But so because she loves to go out to dinner and lunch and all that stuff, she's kind of a bit unhinged by the whole thing of staying in and nowhere to go and have cheeky lunch somewhere. And I think that just the scale of it. I've heard that 4 months we have 100,000 deaths in the USA right now. I'm in Western Massachusetts. Obviously, I live in England too some of the time. I used to live there full time until a couple of years ago, in fact. And that's the second worst hit country in the world. The 2 English-speaking countries are really getting hit hard by this thing. Yeah. And I just think it's terrible. It's just the speed, I think we had people compare it to the flu, and the flu. They say, well, only 40,000 people die every year from the flu, so this is nothing. But that's all year. That's a yearly figure. Agreed, it's September till the end of May, or it's a fair amount of time. It's not the whole year. It's probably 6 months, but we're already lapping that. And I think we haven't seen the end of it.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, one of the things that I find strange about this, we're actually in, Aaron and I are in southeastern Massachusetts. And, our state is one of the hardest hit in the country. Yeah. I think one of the difficult things for people is usually when you think of a disaster, it's an event that occurs. And then there's an aftermath where this is like a rolling event with no end.
Yeah. Yeah. Every morning you wake up and it's still a different world from the one it was in February. And that is just surreal. Everybody is wearing masks when they come near you. It's just I don't know how it's going to pivot back to normal in any time soon. I don't see people being comfortable. Large crowds, in the stadium, without masks and cheering for their friends and sneezing because they have a cold and whatnot. So I think we just got to get ready for this being quite long term, another couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've seen some interesting things come out of this. We're a couple of small time podcasters. We started the show like 2 months ago, and I said to Aaron jokingly, wouldn't it be cool if we could get celebrities to come on and talk about their favorite albums?
We've had tons of them.
Yeah, I think we've interviewed like 10 people so far. And if you told me 2 months ago, I would have laughed right in your face that I'd be sitting here talking to Dr. Bashir today. Like, what the heck? And you've done
upside to COVID.
right, and you've done something very interesting with your time.
So you're Sid City Social Club.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what inspired you to start that?
Well, it was a kind of weird thing between Melissa Lowry and myself. Melissa has run the club, the fan club for Sid, for Bashir. I don't know who the hell she's running a fan club for, really. But for me as an actor, probably that's the way to put it. For 25 years now, and we've never really come up with good ideas about what to do. But this particular confluence of events right now with this terrible virus, we both at the same time basically came up with the idea of doing a social club, where we thought that maybe some people would be pretty lonely, especially people who live alone. And it turns out that people do want to get together. And so we do 4 hours a week, 2 days a week, one for the East Coast and Europe, and one for the West Coast and Hawaii and China. So because we've got people hooking up from all over the planet, and we can only fit 100 people in Zoom, so it's 100 people every day we do it. And I think we've done it 12 times now, so that's for 6 weeks. And what really happens is that people don't really, well, they do want to say hi to me, and I talk for 15 minutes with each person, so it's a real discussion, and everyone else just has to listen. But they just chat amongst themselves on a Zoom chat down at the bottom, and they're just communicating and hooking up and exchanging numbers and Twitter feeds and handles and whatnot. So it's it really is a social club. People get together to get together, and it's been really, really terrific and a real balm.
That's amazing. Yeah, I saw it, and I was going to try to get in, and then when we talked to Melissa, and it sounded like we were going to get to interview you, I didn't want to take up one of those 100 spots because we got you one-on-one here.
Yeah, that's very kind of you.
But what a beautiful thing. That's really, really cool.
It is. And they're really lovely people. I mean, the one thing everybody's wowed by is the generous, welcoming spirit that everybody exhibits in the club. And we have from different polarities of characters and different polarities of age, and kids and elderly people, and people who are very ill, and people who are incredibly fit and well, people who run businesses, teachers, by the plenty, good doctors, you name it. So it's a total cross section, and the only thing they have in common, most of them, is that because we don't publicize it, we haven't told, I don't think, anybody, that they must have somehow stumbled into someone who likes Deep Space Nine or Bashir or one of the shows I've done over the years.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. So it's all very organic.
It seems to be. So far. Yeah. We haven't had the Zoom bombers in yet.
So passwords are for, right? So the reason we asked you here today is one of the things that we do on our show is usually Aaron and I take turns sharing with each other an obscure album. And kind of our thought here was to reach out to some notable folks and get an idea of what your jams are. And you mentioned Marillion's Script for a Jester's Tear.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not that obscure and or that rare, but it's so from 1982. It's from a very long time ago, and not a huge amount of people bought it fresh. And I got it at school, and I was still at school, and it just blew me away. It's the kind of music that I absolutely love, and it's bonkers. I mean, you try and work out what the lines mean, and you're in kind of Alice in Wonderland territory. You can forget about that. So you've got to figure out what Fish is singing about at any given time, the lead singer. But it just arrived, bam, at the right moment, the moment I really needed it to. Because I was a sort of outcast at school. Not an outcast, a loner. I had two friends over the period of 5 years. And one kind of helped me through the first 2.5 years, and the second one helped me through the next 2 years. And then a girlfriend arrived who kind of solved everything. But it was just, I just think it's brilliant, brilliant music. And have you heard it?
Yeah, I was listening to it. It's funny because I looked Marillion was one of those. Anytime I went into a record store, back when there was a thing like called record stores, I would go buy their albums. It was always on my list of bands to check out, and I hadn't got around to it, so I was excited when you mentioned that.
It's just bonkers. I mean, what is it? The fool who escaped from paradise will look over his shoulder and cry, and sit and chew on daffodils and struggle to answer why. When you grow up and leave the playground where you kissed your prince and found your frog, remember the jester who gave you his tears. What does that mean?
Right?
What does it mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting.
I love it.
This album was, I think, 1983, which is kind of when the prog scene was kind of dying. And then and they come along and they got their lyrics are a little darker than typically what you hear in a prog band. It's just a fantastic sound. You launched me on a whole night of, my wife was cringing the whole night. She's like, oh my God, we're going deeper and deeper here.
Yeah. It's just amazing. And there are great songs on the album, like Garden Party and She Knows You Know. I mean, they're just wonderful songs. The song Script for a Jester's Tear is anthemic, you know. It transitions, a bit like Radiohead transitions some of their early songs. And like Paranoid Android or Genesis Seconds Out, which is like 23 minutes. And then we've got the phenomenal Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. These songs depend on transitioning. They start one way and they end you up somewhere else. And I just love that because I was a classical music fan. And I think that kind of tapped into the classical in a sense. And also, Genesis started writing really bad songs and around that time. And that was, you know, when the Peter Gabriel kind of era, his influence rubbed off and Phil Collins really took over. It got poppy, and I was a big fan of the non-poppy Genesis, you know, Foxtrot and Nursery Crimes. And,
oh my God, yeah.
You know, the old songs that were just amazing. And again, nuts, crazy. No one knows what any of it means, you know. There's one couple of words from a song on the Seconds Out album. I think it's also on The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which is talking about Genesis. It's called Carpet Crawlers, and it is probably my all-time favorite song from when I was a kid right till now. And the tagline, "You've got to get in to get out," it still lives with me, and I still think of it. I still think that's how you should approach every problem. But what it means, I don't know. So Genesis started writing, and Marillion just filled the gap beautifully because they were like Genesis in sound, and they just took over where Genesis kind of left the building with albums like Abacab and Duke. I just wasn't interested.
It's funny. I just found there's a Simpsons quote for everything, and there's a clip from one of the Simpsons episodes where I think it's Marge says, "Oh, that Invisible Touch. That's when Genesis became popular, but didn't sound as good."
Yes, that's exactly right. That's right. That's exactly what happened. I went to the only concert. I've only been to 3 or 4 concerts in my entire life, but in 1985 I went to 3 of them, and one was Genesis, the Abacab tour. One was David Bowie, the Glass Spider tour, and the other was Madonna, the Holiday tour. And they were all in Wembley Arena, Wembley Stadium, huge venue. Fits like 60,000 people. And apart from Chester Thompson and Phil Collins doing a drum duet, which blew my socks off, I mean, blew me away. And I still will lazily look up on YouTube, Chester Thompson, Phil Collins, drum duet.
Oh my God, yes.
You listen to that drumming and you're just like, whoa. And I found Bowie, the Glass Spider tour, and Genesis Abacab tour really disappointing because both Bowie and Genesis were great early on and then just got a little bit weirder as they got older and a bit more poppy, went through a poppy phase. So we started, Bowie started singing things like China Girl, and I was like, I'm not there. It's just,
I'm losing it. Yeah, I saw Genesis, I think, I want to say it was like 89 or 90, I saw them. And they started to play Supper's Ready, which is 28 minutes of probably one of the densest prog songs ever done. And they turned it into a medley and went into something else.
Yeah, I remember that beginning. Absolutely dense.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, they're going to play it. And then they shot off into something else.
Yeah. I think the Abacab tour I saw in actually 1982, because I went to Birmingham to watch Genesis. That was the fourth time I went to a concert. The one in 85, I can't remember which one that was.
But it was funny that you see, because that was instantly when I put Marillion on, that the first thing I thought was, this sounds like Gabriel era Genesis. And, you know, sometimes bands are ripping off another band and it doesn't work, but they evoke that nostalgia.
Yeah, not just that, but they do something different. I mean, Fish and Marillion did something, they added to the canon, if you like, that Genesis began and Pink Floyd really began. But in the same way as Muse, that first two albums of Muse, the supergroup now, are really Queen-like, you know. And even now you can hear Queen in everything they do. But they kind of, when they were good, the first, I can't remember what the two first albums of Muse were, but I think one of them was called Absolution and the other one was called Fashion or something like that. They're brilliant albums. If anyone has listened to Muse and gone, I don't like this, it's too trancey or too, I don't know, too poppy. Listen to those first two albums. They're just fantastic albums. But there's a lot of Queen in there. So I think everybody owes something to someone.
Yeah. The Brits. That's where it all comes from. That's all the music.
See, but I also love Foo Fighters, and I also love Green Day, and I also love, I mean, there's so many fantastic American bands as well. And when I was in Los Angeles in the 90s shooting Star Trek, which, by the way, was when I discovered David Bowie. I didn't know him at all up until then, except for that one concert, really back in '85. I didn't really know his music. But I was listening to Counting Crows and Nirvana and, I mean, all kinds of groovy stuff coming out. And there was a DC punk scene that was kicking off at that time. All kinds of good stuff coming out of both countries. But the Brits, you can pretty much rely on them to come up with something new every 5 years and something kind of mega band.
Yeah, and what I always thought was interesting too about that scene, like if you go back to Floyd and Zeppelin, where the Brits took American blues and they were heavily influenced by that, and instead of ripping it off or just co-opting it, they completely transform it into a whole new genre of music.
Absolutely. Well, there was British blues. That was a specific genre itself. I don't know if you ever heard Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac, where I believe Fleetwood Mac began its days with this British blues guitarist called Peter Green. And it was a British band. And then it evolved into just the Fleetwood Mac when he kind of, I think he went a little nuts. I'm not really sure if that's the appropriate word these days. But he couldn't appear anymore in public. But just get the greatest hits of Peter Green and the Fleetwood Mac, and you'll hear all of that bluesy guitar. I mean, he wrote Black Magic Woman, you know, and everyone thinks it was Santana. So he was coming up with great stuff.
Wow, that's awesome.
So do you have a favorite track on the Marillion album?
Script for a Jester's Tear. I mean, I sang you like the stanza that comes out. I still remember it. I'm 55 years old now. And I heard that. I was listening to that regularly when I was 17. That stuck with me.
Yeah, it's amazing how it becomes part of your DNA. After talking to you the other night, I was actually, when you emailed me about Genesis, I was watching Carpet Crawlers, the Seconds Out version. And
oh yeah,
I hadn't, there was a time in my life, all I listened to was Genesis, nothing else. And it's probably been about 20 years since I sat down and seriously listened to Lamb or any of those albums. And listening to Carpet Crawler, I just started singing. I knew all the lyrics. It just come right back.
Yeah, that's just such a great song. And it's so different on Seconds Out than it is on Lamb Lies Down. And I prefer the Seconds Out version. So it's kind of, that separates Genesis fans because they either like the Carpet Crawler from Lamb Lies Down or the Carpet Crawler from Seconds Out.
Which is kind of what I find sad about the fact that they went puppy. Like Phil Collins does a fantastic job of singing Peter Gabriel songs.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah.
But you know,
Absolutely.
invisible touch.
I think right up until the trick of the tail, it just was groovy. It was just really soulful, a very folk pop rock. I mean, all kinds of influences in there. And then it just started to get a bit, and that wasn't so much fun. So, by the way, Phil Collins lived next to me. He was actually my neighbor, my physical neighbor. I think he's since moved to another country, I think, but my mother came to me, this is before I knew who they were, because I was about 14 when he moved next to me. And when I didn't get to know Genesis until I was about 16. But one of the reasons was he moved next to me. So my mother came to me and said, they're having a party next door. It's a pop group called Genesis, a man called Phil Collins. Does he ring a bell? And I went, nope. She said, okay, I'll turn that down. And so we didn't go. In fact, she complained about him ruining our water in our little pond at the thing by sending all kinds of junk, putting all kinds of junk on his garden flowers. So yeah, he had the house at the end of Skiff Lane in Loxwood, and we had the house next to it called Hurst Farm House. And I think Mike Rutherford lived a bit further on down Skiff Lane too. They all hung out in that area. Eric Clapton lives in Chiddingfold, which is about 4 miles further northeast. It's all very, because Charterhouse, that school, where they all, that was a thing.
Oh, that's too cool. I can't imagine having Phil Collins as a neighbor.
Yeah, no, absolutely amazing. Yeah, they all lived there. It was we moved down there. I mean, I think I was the only person not white within about 40 miles. This is the most white part of England you can find. And everyone thought that must be, I don't know, my mother was taking someone, my mother's white, or was white. She probably thought that she was babysitting someone.
Oh, that's too funny. Awesome.
Yeah, so you have a movie in post-production, Skylines. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we shot that in Lithuania, and which is, by the way, astonishingly beautiful country. I mean, it would never have been on my list of countries to go to. A town called Vilnius, which is the capital, and boy, is it gorgeous. Rococo, fantastic restaurants. I mean, no one can travel anywhere, so there's no point me recommending going to Vilnius now. But it is a phenomenal place, really nice people. And I got called up by these producers to ask if I'd play kind of one of the leads in this movie, to play the kind of commander of a group who go to another planet to deal with an alien invasion, something like we're experiencing now, but ours is more viral. And to say any much more than that is to really give it away. It's one of those characters that is like, oh. And but we had a lot of fun, and I'm sure they've got some great special effects, and I think there's a series of them. I think there were like 2 before me, the 2 Skylines films, and they're just really lovely people. More action than drama. It's not so much, you probably see me in dramas where it comes to movies. Mm-hmm. Not many action movies, but this is pretty much one of those kick-ass, fight everything.
That explains the 3 in the title. I was trying to figure it out.
Oh, is there a 3 in the title?
Yeah. The E is a 3, and I was like, what is that about?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, but I'm hoping it'll be great. I hope it'll be really entertaining. That's the point of it.
I know.
What have you heard about it? Because I haven't heard anything about it at all.
Honestly, I was on IMDb, and they're showing it as in post-production. There wasn't a lot of info about it.
Got it. Yeah, well, they've been in post for quite a while now, so they should be pretty close.
Oh. And I know this is a difficult question to answer, because we don't know when or what the world is going to look like when we come out of this pandemic, but do you have anything in the works coming up?
I'm producing now. I mean, that's kind of my retirement. I'm already preparing for the end of my career as an actor. You always have to, because this is such an unstable career. And also when you get to about 50, you stop being leading man material. So there's really not much potential to be that. So we're producing a couple of really wonderful shows, and which means we just bought the rights to a couple of terrific novels and found some partners and some writers, and we're sort of close, really close on one to actually pulling the trigger and getting it to, going into production. So obviously limited by the fact we don't know when we can go into production. But everyone's hoping that they can start shooting something at the end of fall, which may or may not be possible, as long as it's shot in America or England for an English show. I can say that they're really exciting for us, my partner and I, business partner, but I can't really say anything about it because legally I'm not allowed to talk about, give titles and stuff because that's up to the studios to actually say, and we're making this, not up to me to go, and we're making this. So the studio will do that. I'm doing little things that you can do from home, little voiceovers and things like that. No, really, my career now is, talking to people in their houses on Zoom. Our social club really is what takes up most of my time, and gardening and stuff like that. And then I shot a movie last year for a wonderful director who kind of, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. But put it this way, one of the directors who directed, some of the best movies ever made in America, one of the top 5 American directors, and that took took ages and ages. That's what took me to 7 different countries last year.
Oh, wow.
Skylines took me to the 8th, which was Lithuania. So that's exciting, but I think that's going to be edited. I'm told it takes a minimum of 3 years to edit his movies. Yeah, exactly. And but you'll know soon enough it'll be out. There it is.
Oh, and I guess I should warn you. Be on the look. If you get a call from Josh Gad, don't answer it. Yeah, I don't know if you know, he's been putting together reunions of casts via Zoom, and I'm just getting it out there because I'd love to see a DS9 reunion.
Absolutely, that would be great.
He's done Goonies and Back to the Future and a couple others, but I think we need to see a DS9 reunion.
That's a fantastic idea. Yeah, the only way I'm reuniting people is getting them on the social club. Like hopefully Nana visitors coming tomorrow to tomorrow's event. We've had Andy Robinson. We've had Ira Burr, the executive producer. I'm going to get Ciroc to come and do something. So I'll work my way through the cast as and when I can. If I can find Colm Meaney, I don't know what hole he's gone down. I know he's still working, but I have no idea where he is. It's really hard to track down.
That's awesome.
How are you finding the COVID experience?
The COVID?
Mm-hmm.
It's been challenging. We're both, Aaron and I work together in the real world outside of this. And we both, I think March 23rd was the last time that we worked. Yeah. So we've been, fortunately, we found a creative outlet.
You have. What a great idea. And you both, you kind of, you both like, do you always do it in this venue?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. That's great. It's really enterprising. Congratulations.
Yeah, we're hoping it grows. This is much, believe me, for work, we wash and unpack rocks, mineral specimens. So like, this is definitely much more exciting than. Yeah.
No, that sounds fascinating.
It is. It's pretty cool. I'll have to admit. Yeah. Anytime you see like amethyst or rose quartz or crystals in the store, they were probably cleaned by us at some point.
Wow. And so rock polishing, is that tumbling you do?
We get it already tumbled. A lot of that's done in South Africa or China.
Yeah, I used to love that. I used to have a tumbler. Someone gave me a rock tumbler. I lost interest after a bit because it took so long. The kids immediately, but it was still amazing. You have to get yourselves. Then you're gonna have to invest in one of these LED lights so that because you've got quite okay lighting, but not really good. So you're gonna have to get 2 lights pop from both sides and just light you guys up.
That's why we're hoping this takes off. So we have a budget to get these things.
Absolutely. I know that I bought one, a good one, a terrible one for $70, which just broke while I was on Zoom the other day. Just went, oh, LED, the many LED lights, they're the ones to go with. And I bought a really good one for about 120, which is pretty good investment given the amount of time you got to be on here. Yeah. And but that's the only thing. Otherwise, I think you guys have got it down. And they've got the Stormtrooper fake head right in the background there.
Yeah, and I had to bring this down. This is a almost a screen accurate Rancagino mug.
It is.
It took me a long time to find that. So, like, oh, I'll just sneak it in there.
Good. Cool.
So one thing I'll say before we let you go, I've got no complaints about DS9, one of the best shows ever. And I know actors don't like to talk out against their work, but on behalf of Game of Thrones fans everywhere, I'd like to thank you for doing an awesome job of playing Doran Martell. You were criminally underused. That Doran subplot.
I have to say that I couldn't possibly have done an awesome job because I didn't have anything awesome to do. So I was completely unchallenged. But I have a feeling that, these things happen. And I have a feeling that once they hired me, they realized, because everyone was quite excited. And we were all looking forward to a thing, and I was going to do a season, et cetera, et cetera. But and then I got a call saying, you're going to die, like right away. Sorry, we've just changed our minds about how everything's going. And I think what they did before they really got going with that character is they realized they were going to end the show in the next 2 seasons. So I was a loose end they couldn't afford to have to build up because they had real trouble, I hear. My wife's a massive Game of Thrones fan, and she watched all of the last season, which I didn't do. And she said the one thing that didn't work for her was it wasn't satisfying the way it ended. Too many problems not tied up.
It was rushed.
Square pegs forced into round. It felt like that. And the plot didn't kind of work as well as it should have done. And I hear that the last show was kind of famous. The fans all went crazy. This is not good enough. And should reshoot it, et cetera, et cetera. So I would have just been an extra problem in that already minefield of problems they had. So I think that's why I went. And it was a bit of a shame because it was really exciting, the whole Dawn to the show, because it's such a different vibe to the rest of the families who were all. So that was a shame. But hey.
We'll always have Deep Space Nine.
We'll always have that.
Awesome. Well, Sid, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to sit and talk with us today. We really appreciate it.
I have really loved it. Thanks.
And look forward to seeing you on more stuff.
I think it's a fabulous idea. I think there's a lot more mileage in this. This unusual albums thing is really, really cool.
Yeah, we're enjoying it. I'm partly for a selfish reason. Like, I like music. I tend to listen to the same thing all the time. And I've been already, in the short time we've been doing this, I've been exposed to tons of new music. So I'm loving it.
Well, I've got to give you the other 2 recommendations I gave you because of and said you choose which ones you want to talk about. The Handsome Boy Modeling School, which is another really pretty rare album. So How's Your Girl, which is a brilliant title. Is a fantastic, funny album. Rap that is not rap as you'd expect it to be. It's not West Coast, East Coast rap. It's just kind of clever, tricksy, interesting. I recommend that to anybody who's interested. And a really rare album, which I've never met anyone who knows, is Apes and Androids singing Blood Moon, which is a fantastic album. Good luck finding it.
Cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah, if we can.
Yeah. Oh, we'll find it. We've got our sources.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again. You take care and talk to you later.
You bet.
And
Sit out.